Welcome to Bios to Books. I'm Dan Davidson, and I'm your host for this program. The objective of this show is to introduce talented, but in most cases, yet to be discovered authors to the reading public. During these interviews, these authors will talk about their journey into the world of writing and selling a book. They'll discuss the difficulties with navigating through the world of self-publishing. Come along with me on this incredible ride, and you might just learn something interesting.
To Kill a Mockingbird and Gone with the Wind, and unforgettable characters such as Atticus Finch, Rhett Butler, and Scarlett O'Hara have thrilled millions of readers decade after decade. Now, there is a new treasure trove of books out there that are mostly ignored. Many self-publishing authors are just waiting to get discovered. We are encouraging readers like yourself to take a chance and read their books. You can find them on Amazon.com, Amazon on Kindle, Barnes & Nobles, Goodreads.com, and Kobo. Also on Scribd, Versa, and iBook, or hopefully soon at your nearest public library.
Welcome to Bios to Books. I'm your host, Dan Davidson. I'm very excited about today's guest. She is a popular author of several paranormal fantasy romance novels. Her name is Rebecca Hefner. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's my pleasure, actually. Before we get to talking about your books a little bit, I wanted to mention to the viewers that I did read one of your books, The End of Hatred, and I did an Amazon review on it. And I loved the book. It was a great story.
So glad.
Yeah, no, it was a great story with wonderful characters, and I really enjoyed it. And I don't usually read that genre, but now I'm going to, because I really enjoyed it. I didn't think I'd enjoy it. You know, I don't know if it's a macho thing or what, but I didn't know what to expect with the story. Now I'm going to start looking at one of your new. It's not your newest book, but Paradox of Hate, I think.
Yeah, Paradox of Fates. Yeah, that one's
right.
Sci-fi romance.
Right, Paradox of Fate. Right, I'll stand corrected on that. But I did pull it up, and I'm going to order it. I'm going to read it. It looks very interesting. It's very different, but it may very well relate to what's going on right now with some of the scary stuff that's in there. So I'm looking forward to that. But we'll talk about.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. But we'll talk about that later when we get to your books. What I'd like to do is have you maybe let the audience know a little bit about yourself. I know you were originally raised in North Carolina, right?
Yes. Yep. In Western North Carolina, very close to Asheville, but in a small town.
Okay, and then now you're in New York.
Yep, I live right outside of New York City. Actually on the New Jersey side, but on the Hudson River. So I'm, right, very close to Manhattan.
Right.
And so I'm up in the New York City area now.
So how long have you been in New York now?
So I moved to New York the day after I graduated college. I went to UNC Chapel Hill, and I moved up here the day after I graduated college, and I had never been to New York before, so I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I just wanted to try something new. And that was in, oh my gosh, when did I graduate college? 1999, so over 20 years now.
Oh, okay, so you're a veteran now. I mean, you adjusted to the madness of New York, yeah. I'm originally from New York myself. I moved out to the Southwest about, I guess, 25 years ago. I was in Vegas for 23 years, and now I'm in Arizona for the last 2 years. So I like the desert.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, I bet it's so much warmer than here. February has just been brutal this year. So you're smart to get out to Arizona. That's nice.
Yeah. Well, like I say, it's not for everybody, but if you like the warm weather, it's nice. So, but anyway, so I thought we'd just talk a little bit about your life and what you're comfortable discussing. How you started, what's going on, and things like that. Nothing deep, just what you're comfortable with talking about, and then we'll get to your books.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again for having me. And I'll say that I read your book too. Is it Butterfly Kisses?
Butterfly Wish.
Butterfly Wish, yes.
Right.
And I really enjoyed it. It was very good. And also same for me, like not the normal genre that I read, but I thought it was so well done. So it's so nice to be here talking to you. And yeah, so I have been an author now I published The End of Hatred, which was my first book in 2018, November of 2018. So I've been an author for a little bit over 2 years, and I now have almost 20 books published under Rebecca Hefner, and I also started another pen name, so we can talk about that later. But so yeah, I never set out to become an author, but I've always loved reading, which I think most authors start out as readers, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. And I've always loved reading, and I've done various things in my life. My most recent job before I became an author was that I was a medical sales rep for surgical companies like Medtronic and Intuitive Surgical. And I did that for over a decade. But then I wasn't really happy. I wasn't happy. And I decided that I wanted to try. I had written about 10 versions of The End of Hatred for myself, never intending to publish it.
Right.
But I figured out that maybe I had a story there, and maybe I could hire an editor and figure out how to do it. And self-publishing was really exploding at the time. So that's really what I did. I saved up all my money, and I made a multi-year plan where over the next 2 to 3 years, I decided I was going to save my money and kind of teach myself how to self-publish, hire a good team of editors and proofreaders, and just get it out there and, try to see if I could, make something of myself in the author world. And that's what I did. And I really enjoy it. It's been great. So it's hard. It's you probably know this too. It's very hard.
Yeah. We'll get to that point later on, because you just hit it right on the head. It's a tough business to break into.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating to a lot of new authors. So that's why we're going to talk about that later. But it sounds to me like my situation is a little different. I think I've been writing a little longer than you, but for a long time I wrote screenplays. And I really had a tough time trying to get Hollywood to read them. It's a very, very, very closed door situation with Hollywood. I mean, some people make it through, and I give them a lot of credit for it, but it's not easy to enter that particular realm of writing, because it's so competitive in there, and it's so who you know. If you know somebody, you're halfway there. Of course, you still have to have a decent screenplay, just like with a book.
Right.
And if you have some garbage, they're not going to sell. You're not going to sell it to anybody. But it's a tough business. So anyway, I decided one day. My co-author and I went through the service together, and that's how we wrote Butterfly Wish, because I wrote it as a screenplay, and it wasn't going anywhere, but I thought it was really good. And of course, every writer thinks it's good, but I really had a gut feeling about it. And he said to me, well, why don't we try writing it as a book? And I said, well, I don't know how to write a book. I said, I never sat down to write a book. He said, well, let's give it a shot. So that's how we wound up writing Butterfly Wish. And so my inspiration was a little different, but the same feelings you had. I wanted to try something different. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But anyway, I want to talk a little bit about your books, but I wanted to find out first, because I talked about paranormal fantasy romance, which seems to be one of your genres. And I just was wondering, what made you decide to write in that genre?
So, well, I'm an avid reader in that genre, and I love my favorite author. Well, I have two favorite authors in that genre. J.R. Ward, who writes the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, and it's vampires and all these dark storylines, which I love. And of course, they all fall in love. And Nora Roberts, who she writes, across all genres of romance, and then she writes under J.D. Robb, right? She writes sci-fi, futuristic stuff. But she's such a good writer. And anyway, she wrote this trilogy, which I love, called the Circle Trilogy, which was about vampires and dragon shifters. And it was unlike anything I'd ever read by her. And I loved it. And I just started reading all these new stories with these different elements, these fantasy elements. And I just thought, oh my God, I love this. This fits so well in with I have such a vivid imagination anyway. I was oh my God, I could think up my own world and write the story. This is really cool. So I love romance, and I love reading romance, even just regular contemporary romance. But I do love the fantasy elements, and I love like sci-fi. A Paradox of Fates is a sci-fi time travel romance book, and I love combining the fantasy with the romance elements and the happy ever after, and I feel like that gives it's something that can really reach across genres, so that if you're not a romance reader, you still enjoy it, or if you're not a sci-fi reader, you still enjoy it, because there are elements that there are multiple elements in the story. So that's what I really love about writing fantasy romance.
So you fill the needs of different readers that prefer certain genres, but you've kind of combined some of them together, which is really good. That's why you got me. Be honest with you, that's how you got me.
Great.
But that's a key to everything is figuring out your reading audience and see draw as many people as you can to your books. But in the end, it's what you write that counts, and you're very good at what you do.
Well, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I love these. Yeah, I mean, like your characters live in your head, kind of. So it's nice to be able to. And when I became an author, I took a lot of different courses and things to become better at sort of writing on the page how these characters interacted in my head, right, so that I could hopefully really paint the picture for the reader. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That's nice.
Yeah, what's interesting to me too is that your protagonist is a female often, and I wasn't used to that because most of my reading came from historical books and novels. I like history, so a lot of that I'm used to reading that. I mean, there is some times an author will include as a protagonist a female, but in that genre, it's not as common as in your genre. So I wasn't sure what my take would be on that, but I really liked it. I thought it was so
great. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, all of my novels every single one so far has got like a strong, sort of badass heroine, which I love.
and that's exactly what they are, badass heroines. I have a list of your books, starting with the 5-book series. Can you tell us a little bit about that series? Because it's important to me to let the audience know that there's a certain way they should read those 5 books. And I thought maybe you would talk about it, and then I'll get into your other books.
Sure. So The End of Hatred is book 1 in my Aetherius Earth series. And yes, that's a 5-book series. I actually just, about 2 weeks ago, released a novella that I'm calling book number 5.5, but I only released it as an ebook. And I'm going to do a paperback for that one. But I did do an audiobook, which, by the way, people can get for free anytime from BookFunnel. I'm offering that novella for free, but regardless, they can go to my website if they want to get it for free. But what they really should do is, like you said, read the series in order. So I put out that little novella because I'm still writing book 6. I will have a couple more books in that series, and I wanted to put out something to like keep the readers going until I could finish that book 6, because those larger books they take a while to write. But yeah, so the Aetherius Earth series is my paranormal romance series, and it starts with The End of Hatred. The Elusive Sun is book 2. The Darkness Within is book 3. The Reluctant Savior is book 4, and The Impassioned Choice is book 5. And what's the reason why it's best read in order is because you meet the protagonists in book 1, which are Miranda, the Slayer Princess, and Sathan, the Vampire King. Right. But you also meet all of the other cast of characters who end up becoming the main characters of each of the subsequent books. Oh. So I think it just adds to the enjoyment of the story. I love a lot of twists, and so you find out different twists as the series progresses, and so I think it just adds to the story if you start with The End of Hatred and then you basically read them as one continuous story in this world. And it's fun too, because you get to revisit the characters. You get to revisit Miranda and Sathan, when they have their baby and like all this fun stuff in book 3. So,
so we'll let remind the readers, if you're going to read that series, you don't have to read it in order, but it would certainly be beneficial to pick up on the characters and where they left off from the other book that they read.
Yeah, and I think it's just more enjoyable because then you get to know the characters. And I mean, a lot of my readers who read it and review, or my reviewers, my readers, whatever, they'll email me and they'll say, "Oh, it was so nice to read book 3 because we got to revisit these characters again, and I feel like I know them now." And so, yeah, I think it adds to the enjoyment of the the story if you read them in order.
It's sort of like watching a mini series on television. I mean, you can pick it up anywhere, but it's a lot easier to watch it from the beginning. And as each show goes on, you can relate a lot easier to it. But it's
absolutely
it's watchable either way. Just like this is readable either way. So that's good. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of other books available on Amazon.com. I obviously don't list them all here, but I would have mentioned 4 to you. You can comment on them. And then if you want to expand on that to other books, please feel free to do that. I'm talking about the one that I'm about to read, The Paradox of Fates, Destiny Reborn, Timeline Restored, and Two Souls United. I think that's a new one.
So Two Souls United is the book 5.5 in my Okay. And so that one is in my Aetherius Earth series. It's hard because Amazon doesn't let you list. So I did a lot of research on this, like how should I list this? And on different, like on Kobo and some of the other Apple, you can list books as 0.5, and that's what most authors do as novellas. But Amazon doesn't let you do that. So I had to list it in like this weird way.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, I tried that with a Christmas story I'm working on. I wanted it to be a novella, and I couldn't figure it out. And it was like they didn't want me to do what I wanted to do, and I wasn't happy with that. So to make a long story short, I wound up finishing it off as a novel. So I didn't have to deal with that. But I know what you're talking about, the frustration of that. So I don't know, would you like to comment on any of these books, or you want to talk about other books? That's fine.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'll definitely talk about the Prevent the Past trilogy. So that's A Paradox of Fates is book 1 in my Prevent the Past series, which is I basically describe it as like a steamy sci-fi time travel romantic suspense series. So say that 3 times fast. Yeah. But the reason that this series came about is that I'm a big science geek. I went to space camp when I was 14, and I went to a special school for physics when I was in high school. And I just love anything science. I watch the Science Channel all the time. I'm just so into it. And so after I wrote book 4 in the Aetherius Earth series, I really wanted to start writing a new series. I felt like it was something that I wanted to offer my readers and just something to keep it fresh. Right. And I've always wanted to write a series that has a female theoretical physicist as the main character. And so our character in book 1 in A Paradox of Fates, her name is Dr. Elaine Randolph. They call her Lainey. And she is brilliant, and she's this brilliant physicist, and she actually lives in the year 2075. And it turns out, and you find out in the prologue, I mean, you can read this in the look inside and on Amazon, that her grandfather was president back in the year 2035 and ended up setting off the nukes and basically destroying the world and sending the world into a post-apocalyptic dystopian nightmare, basically. Right. And so President Randolph, his son Lewis, was a physicist, and then had his daughter Lainey and trained her to be a physicist. And their entire goal Lainey was literally born to learn how to solve time travel so she could go back in time to 2035 and prevent her grandfather from destroying the world. So that's why it's called the Prevent the Past series.
That's an interesting concept, really. I did read the intro to the book. And I was fascinated. I mean, first of all, the way you describe what happened in 2035, it was frightening, very frightening, because you can relate to it right now. And that's what scared me more than anything, the fact that it could happen. And but I like the entire intro into the story itself. I haven't got into the actual book yet. I will, though. And
thanks.
I'm interested in it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. I also wrote this one knowing that the Aetherius Earth series is a little dark. I mean, it has a very bad antagonist, and I do have content warnings for all of my books on my website. So for anyone who wants to read those, I think it's important. I always like to put them out just to make sure. Because everybody has different things that they're not comfortable with. So for anyone who wants to read my books, you can find all the content warnings on my website under the books tab. Right. But anyway, I figured with the Prevent the Past series, I mean, it's still a heavy subject because it's literally talking about destroying the world. But there's that one I felt like might appeal to more readers who like didn't want like the super duper nasty bad guy. And it's more just like there's definitely a romance in each book of the trilogy. And I just think it appeals. I've had different people write to me who are different readers of all types. I just had a guy email me last week, and his name was Michael, and it was such a nice email. He's 75 and retired, and he just found my email and emailed me that he really enjoyed A Paradox of Fates. And he's like, I've never read a novel that has a romance as a subgenre in my entire life, but I was drawn to it because of the sci-fi element. Right. And he really enjoyed it. And I thought, wow, that's great. Like, it's so awesome that like this guy found this book and he enjoyed it. Like, not my target audience, but it probably should be. I should probably be marketing this to everybody.
Well, the fact that he took the time to send you an email on a book says a lot. Because, I mean, I've been writing for quite a while now, and I don't get too many emails. So I don't know if I should look at that one way or the other. But when somebody takes the time to write you like that you consider that a compliment.
It was so lovely. And it's so nice. Being an author is so solitary, and it's, I'm in my house writing by myself all the time. Getting an email like that is in the middle of, a long week when you're like, oh, I have to finish this today and I need to write 3,000 more words. Yep. It is really nice. Yeah. It's lovely when people take the time to do that.
I think it's even better than a positive review, because they're taking that extra moment of time to talk to you one-on-one. A review is not, everybody likes reviews, good or bad, hopefully good. But I mean, everybody strives to get reviews, but like a personal email like that says a lot. It does.
Very much. Yeah. It was really, it was such a nice gesture. So we need more nice gestures in this world, right?
Yeah, well, yourself, being an author, you have to be very thick-skinned. You have to be ready for it all. And,
absolutely.
I think that's what scares a lot of people that want to write. They're afraid they're going to get negative results or negative comments. And, it happens. But, again, thick skin helps. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, I was in sales for over 12 years. And so I developed a really thick skin. But I will say, you're definitely right. Even though I had such a thick skin from being rejected all the time in sales, they weren't rejecting something that I personally made, like my own creation. So when you're on your own books, it is, man, you see that first 1-star review, we all get them. Everybody, even, everybody gets them.
Yeah. You can't avoid it. If you don't get them, something's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember the first 1-star review I ever got. I was like, I literally thought my heart was going to like fall out of my body. And I was like, wow, this person did not enjoy this.
Yeah, the first thing you say to yourself is, this can't be my book. He must be talking about somebody else.
Right.
This is not my book.
Exactly. But, Do they have the wrong page?
Yeah. So, all right. So you mentioned The Paradox of Fates. Do you want to talk about those other books in the series too?
Sure. So A Paradox of Fates is book 1. And that's where, Lainey, Dr. Randolph, she meets this mysterious soldier, and he shows up at the compound, and that's her love interest. And she can't quite figure him out. And there are some really big twists in this book. I think we've figured out this far that I really like twists. So there are some, so Hunter, who shows up in book 1, he's not really who he seems to be at first. And there is another person, I don't want to say too much, because this is another one that needs to be read in order, especially because it's a time travel series. Right. So otherwise it would never make sense. But basically what happens is that Lainey does figure out time travel. So 2 of the characters that you meet in book 1, so her team decides to go back to 2035 once she's figured it out. So she and Hunter travel first, and they end up in 2035 safely. The next 2 people, Claire and Cyrus, who are supposed to go back, the time machine malfunctions, and they end up in the year 2002 all by themselves. They have no idea what to do, because they've only ever lived in a post-apocalyptic world. And they're like Claire goes to a diner and can't believe there's so much food in front of her. She's like, can I order anything on the menu? This is crazy. It was so fun to write. So book 2 is really about Claire and Cyrus going back to 2002, without meaning to, and they start surveilling President Randolph in 2002 to hopefully gain information for Lainey in the hopes that she'll come and rescue them. So that's book 2. And then book 3 is you figure out that the reason why the time machine malfunctioned in book 2 is because they were attacked while they were in transport. So then everybody else is stuck in 2075. So book 3 is about everyone in 2075 trying to get to Laney, who's already successfully traveled back to 2035.
Right.
And if they can accomplish that, then they have to go and stop President Randolph from destroying the world. So they have a lot to accomplish in book 3. That's a timeline restored.
I said, no, it sounds very interesting. I mean, I could ask you a political question, but I'm not going to do it. I'm tempted to, but I won't. I'll give
That's
you
probably smart.
I'll just give you an idea what I was going to ask you. You don't have to answer this stuff. Did you have any particular president in mind when you were thinking of President Randolph? You could say yes or no. It don't matter.
You know, I'll say this. I think we have a lot of autocratic people in the world, a lot of people who have sort of dictator tendencies. And then I think we have a lot of people who, and this is in so many countries in the world. And then I think we have a lot of people who encourage that type of behavior, that type of sort of dictatorial behavior. And I think those are really, in the Prevent the Past trilogy, what ends up happening is that President Randolph is definitely a bad guy, but we find out that the real bad guys are the people urging him on, the people who have this master plan. He just kind of ends up being a pawn in the end. And you really meet the real bad guy and the real guy who sort of runs this nefarious regime that has this plan to blow up the world. So, I think the state of all of the countries, of many countries in the world right now, are that there are a lot of, people who, a lot of leaders that, maybe don't have the best interest of their people at heart. So President Randolph is probably an amalgamation of all of those people.
Great answer. Great answer. Terrific. Okay, so we've discussed this trilogy, and you mentioned that Two Souls United is sort of like a 5.1 version that's on ebook, right? Available on ebook in Amazon.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. And it's also available for free. I made that audiobook. I made it into an audiobook too. I have a great narrator. His name's Devin Wilcox. But I made that audiobook free because it's so short. I didn't want to charge people for it. And I felt like it was a nice way if people want to try out one of my books, they can try out that audiobook. But the problem is that it's book 5.5, so it won't make sense. So you probably should read the end of Hatred first, at least.
Yeah. In that case, probably yes. Yeah. Is there any other books that you want to mention before I go on to my questions with you?
Sure. So like I mentioned, I did start another pen name at the end of 2019. And I didn't, it kind of really happened organically. I got this idea in my head that I wanted to write a steamy Christmas fake relationship romance, because fake relationship is like a big trope in romance. Right. And, that didn't fit in with any of my books under the Rebecca Hefner brand. And I didn't really know. I wrote it and I thought it was good, but I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, I think people will really like this if I put it out, but like, it doesn't go under my brand. So I just decided to create another pen name, and the pen name is Isla Asher. And to just put it out and see if people liked it. I just, had someone proofread it and put it out. I didn't spend a ton of money like producing it or anything. Right. It's only a 40,000 word book. And anyway, I put it out under the Isla Asher name, so no one knew it was me. I didn't tell anyone it was me because I was like, if it sucks, I don't want them to know it's Rebecca Hefner wrote it. But anyway, the reception was really good, knock on wood. And I was like, wow, I think I have something here. So then I quickly wrote 2 more books and made it a trilogy to see if people would continue reading. And they did. And so from there, then I began writing more under that pen name as well. And it's nice because Isla Asher is just steamy contemporary romance. It's just for people who like, fun, steamy. It's not as angsty. There's no fantasy elements or anything. It's just like people trying to figure out how to fall in love. So anyway, I now have 7 books published under the Isla Asher name. So for any of your readers who enjoy, they're very sweet, they're quite steamy because I do love a nice steamy scene, and they're very just like fun romantic books. So anyone of your readers who, or your observers who like romance novels would probably enjoy them.
Oh, okay. So it's Isla Asher.
Yeah, so it's Ayla Asher.
Okay. What's the title of that trilogy on a Christmas one? I missed
Yeah,
that.
so it's called book one is called His Holiday Pact, because they make a pact. The hero and heroine make a pact that they are going to be each other's fake, boyfriend and girlfriend for Christmas. It's one of my favorite tropes. So it's like, I can write this story. I've read 100 million of these in my life. And they decide they're going to take each other home for the holidays so that their parents will stop asking them to, stop being upset that they're single. Right. And of course they end up falling in love.
Of course. And the follow-ups are continuation of those characters, or are they different stories?
Yeah. So similar to my Aetherius Earth books, so in that trilogy, you meet the two. So you meet Carter and Kayla are the main characters, but you meet Kayla's two best friends. And their names are Joy and Laura. So book two is called Her Valentine Surprise. So His Holiday Pact is a Christmas book. Book two is called Her Valentine Surprise. And that's obviously a Valentine's Day book. Yep. And that's where you see Joy fall in love with Sam. And then book three is called Her Patriotic Prince. And I had it revolve around Independence Day. So I had them each kind of revolve around a holiday. And in book three, you get to see Laura, who's her other best friend, fall in love with this guy named Adam, who's a soldier. And they're all they're all 40,000 words. They're short and fun. And you really feel like you get to know the characters, because they're in all three of the books, which is nice.
Sounds like the type of books that they could make into a Hallmark romance film.
Yes. Yeah. I've had many of my reviewers say that, this is reminds me of the Hallmark movies or whatever. And I'm like, great.
I have to confess that I do watch some of those movies on Hallmark. My wife got me into that because she loves them. Nice. She watches them all the time. And I actually have to say, some of them I thought were corny from a male point of view. But
sure.
Some of them I thought were well written and really good. The characters, the characters in the storyline. So I was surprised. So I watch them from time to time.
That's so great. I love that. Yeah, my friends and I love them. And I mean, some of them are super cheesy. And my friends and I will laugh at it. We'll be like, oh my God, here's another story about the businesswoman who goes to the country and meets the farmer who runs the winery. We've seen the story. But still, it's just so cute. They're it's something that I always feel like they're a nicely packaged product, these Hallmark movies, because you always know what you're going to get. Right. The actors are attractive people, and you want to see them fall in love, and So I'm happy to hear you say that you watch some of them with your wife. That's nice.
I mean, I don't worry no more. I'm 78. I don't care what anybody
Good
thinks.
For you. Good for you.
But all right, so the audience knows that you write under a pen name also, and it's mostly romance. So they have a choice if they want to look at some of those books, they can do that too, which I would recommend they do. Sounds pretty interesting to me. So anyway, on every show I like to ask our guests a few questions that is kind of standard question. I think you've probably been interviewed other places that probably ask some of these questions. So bear with me. We'll see what we get out of it.
Sure.
The first question I have is, at what age did you actually get the bug for writing?
Oh man. I mean, I have been writing stories forever. Probably 5. I remember after when I was young, after I saw the movie The Princess Bride, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, I wrote this story on I took all these pieces of paper and wrote this story about Princess Buttercup, but it was me. And then I stapled all the pages together and gave it to my mom. And I was like, here's a story for you. And she was like, I don't know what to do with this. So anyway, from very young, I've always loved writing stories and making up characters in my head.
That's interesting. I mean, I thought I started writing in 9th grade and I thought that was really young, but
that is still very young. Yeah, that's awesome.
But being 5 years old and putting words on paper, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, my mom was like, this is okay.
Doesn't matter. It's still words, and they came out of you, so it's still writing. Yep, I know what you're saying.
There's scribbles on the page with the crayon.
Yep. But, as I'm sure your mom appreciated it anyway.
Yeah, she was a teacher and a really good teacher.
Oh, there you go. That's even more so then. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So can you remember the first thing you ever wrote, but not published, but just anything that you ever wrote?
Well, I mean, I I wrote a lot of poetry when I was younger. I actually did have a poem published in a anthology when I was, I think, 14.
Wow.
It was just a poem, that I wrote and like submitted. Like I found a thing in the back of a newspaper, like submit your poem, and if we like it, we'll publish it along with these other 200 poems. And I was like, oh, great! And then they chose it, and I was like, well, this is cool. Like,
Wow, that is cool.
yeah. So I mean, I think I used to love to write poetry. I haven't written any lately. I don't know, probably because I'm writing all these books all the time.
You
but
don't have time, yeah.
yeah, but I do love to. Yeah, I've loved to write for a long time.
Yeah, but poetry is tough to write. It's a style of writing all to its own. My co-author he's a big galoot, but he writes poetry. He's been writing it for years.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's his
Nice.
favorite thing to write. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I read some of it. It's quite good. I mean, he hasn't published much. I think he has one or two things published, but he just does it because he enjoys it, But
that's great. It is very cathartic to write poetry. Yeah. Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah.
Who are your favorite authors? You did mention a couple. So are those your favorite authors that you mentioned?
Yes. So J.R. Ward and Nora Roberts are definitely my favorite fantasy paranormal romance authors. I also love Lisa Kleypas. She writes historical romance.
Yes,
now, I know you. Yeah. Have you read anything of hers?
No, I haven't, but I kind of looked at her profile and kind of browsed over her work. I have not had a chance to read anything. I'm so busy that I try to read books, but the more you get into this, the less time you have to read yourself. And you know how that works.
I miss reading so much. I still do read as much as I can, but reading is one of my favorite things, and I don't get to do it as much now. And when I do read, I'm usually reading other indie authors so I can, review for them, and I really enjoy that. I love reading and reviewing other indie authors' books, but then it takes away from me reading like Lisa Kleypas books those are just like for pure fun, know. But yeah, she's great. I think. I will never write historical romance, and I never say never about a lot of stuff because I've learned in life, never say never, but I don't have the patience to do the research to get it right.
Yeah.
Like when I want to write, that's why I like writing fantasy, because I can just make up the world in my head and I don't have to do any research. But anyway, her books, I love reading her books because they're so historically correct, and they also have these lovely characters that you just feel like you know them. And if I always said as an author, if I can make my readers feel something like what I feel when I read a Lisa Kleypas book or a Nora Roberts book, then that's what I want. That's what I would like to inspire in people.
Yeah. I'll have to catch one of her books. I haven't read, like I said, I don't have time for it, but it's interesting that you said she's historically accurate and things. The whole thing with writing history, because that's what I do mostly. I do a little paranormal, but I'm not good at it.
I read your other book too. I thought that was good. I really enjoyed that one.
Twice Upon a Time. Yeah, I struggled with that. The only reason I wrote that book is my wife wanted me to write it. I had told her, I had given her the concept several years ago, and kind of like a basic background in the idea of the story. And she kept saying, write it. I said, I don't like to write paranormal. I'm not good. There's too many good paranormal authors out there. I'm not good at it. I like to stay in my comfort zone. But I finally did it anyway. But getting back to this.
I thought it was really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But getting back to the history, historical romance and things like that, a lot of writers aren't good at historical accuracy. They kind of fudge it. And it bothers the heck out of me. Because if you don't, try to find out. You can make an honest mistake. You could write a book and be wrong about one particular event. Maybe the years are off, or the characters are off, or something. Or you can do that, but you don't have that flexibility when you're calling it a historical romance. You got to be careful with that. If you want to throw a character, let's say, I'm trying to think, George Washington, the president. If you want to toss him into the story, and he's not a primary character in the story, that's going to affect the reader. You can do that. You have that luxury. He happened to be at a tavern at the same time that the protagonist was in there, or the antagonist. You can do things like that, but you have to be real careful with that. That's why, like
Yes.
what you said about her being historically accurate, that's important. Very important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it can really pull you out of the story.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right if it's not correct. So yeah, I think that's something that it's great that you have the talent and the perseverance to do that. I think people that write historical fiction are really talented.
Like I said, it's like anything you do, it's what you're comfortable with. And, you do your best job when you're comfortable. If you're struggling, it's not that you can't do it. You can still do it, but it's a lot more of a struggle.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I could ask this next question, but I already know the answer, but I'll ask you for the audience anyway. What is your favorite genres?
Oh, well, I mean, I like fantasy romance. I love anything sci-fi. I mean, if it has romance, great. If not, I'll still read it.
Right.
But I also really like nonfiction. I mean, obviously, since I'm a science geek, like I love reading anything by Carl Sagan or Neil deGrasse Tyson or Michio Kaku, who's a physicist who I love.
That's deep. That's deep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I read the gamut of stuff. And then I also love reading John Meacham, who's a historian. So I love him. I'll read anything. I mean, I'm a voracious reader. You put it in front of me, give me the paperback, put it on my Kindle, I'll read it.
Wow. That's good. That's really good. Yeah. Reading is, it's something that's, it's almost like become a lost art with people because I think self-publishing and a lot of new authors coming out has regenerated that desire to read. But there was a time there that people weren't reading it all. I mean, there's always that group that's always going to be readers, but it was shrinking slowly every decade. Like people just weren't reading; they were glued to the television or the computers or movies and things like that. But they just weren't picking up a book. So that's why I think when they started doing self-publishing and making ebooks available, I'm still a hard copy guy myself. I like the feel of a book, but there's a lot of people that enjoy reading ebooks, and so I think it's expanded the audience again, which is good.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I mean, now you can, we're a society that we just want everything at our fingertips, and that's really what ebooks has allowed for people. So you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah. How about the name and the genre of the first book you wrote?
So I guess that would be The End of Hatred. So I call it paranormal romance because that's what they call it in, that's the genre that I like. We can put it in different groups on Amazon, but that's the number one. Yeah. But I really consider it a fantasy romance. It's because I created my own world and I drew a map and it's literally a whole other world.
Right.
So paranormal and or fantasy romance.
Okay. Now, obviously, with the amount of books you've written already, this next question probably answers itself. Are you working on a book now?
Yes, I have so many books. And it's just hard because as I've gotten, there's more now, right? So I have so many books published that I spend so much time, not just the marketing, but I'm in the process of making all my books into audiobooks. So all of my Rebecca Hefner books are all on audiobook right now. A Timeline Restored just came out last week. So those are done for now. Thank goodness. And my Isla Asher books, I have 2 more to go. They're almost all on audiobook. So that requires, it's just sucking up my time because I have to. So my narrators send me the books and then I listen to just make sure, you always find a couple of misspeaks and things like that. Then I send it back and then they send it back to me and then I upload it and then I have to upload it to all the other platforms. And then in the meantime, I'm going to do a sale on book 1. And by the time I'm through and then I have emails that I have to answer. And then I joined a promo with a group of other authors. So I have to make sure I'm doing that. And anyway, by the time I'm done with that, I'm like, oh my God, it's 4:00 in the afternoon. I haven't written anything yet today. So I am working on books and I'm trying to, my goal every day is to write 3,000 to 5,000 words, regardless of whatever else I get done. If I can write more than that, that's fine. But anyway, so I'm working on book 6 in the Aetherius Earth series right now. I also joined my first anthology, which is called Hearts Unleashed. And it's with, I think, 15 other authors, and each one of us are putting a novella in this anthology. And it's available for pre-order now on Amazon and Kobo and iBooks. It's called Hearts Unleashed. We put it up for pre-order for 99 cents. So like anyone can buy it. It's basically just, we're all writing a short story, like a novella. Mine's going to end up being probably around 25,000 words. I have to write that after I finish Aetherius Earth book 6. But anyway, it will end up being book number 6.5 in my Aetherius Earth series. So that will go in the anthology. And then I also have another Isla Asher book that I need to write, that we met the characters in my new series under Isla Asher, which is called Arter Creek. It's like a small town romance series, very Hallmark. Wow. And my readers are asking me for that book, for these two characters. And I'm like, it's coming. I swear I'm going to get it to you soon. So yeah, I'm writing a lot of books right now, but I try to only write one at a time, because I find that if I write more than one at a time, it's just not as focused. So yeah. I'm really trying to finish Aetherius Earth book 6 before I write the other two.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, I find myself getting caught up when I have ideas and I start writing a book, and then I'll start working on another book. And you lose focus when you do it that way. I mean, you have to sort of like dedicate most of you. I can write 2 books at the same time, but I have to pick one to be the one I'm most focused on. And then just write what I need in the second book and go back to it later. So yes. I think we're all on the same page with that.
For sure.
You were talking about audiobooks. I'm just curious. I get questions all the time. I've never done an audiobook myself, but I get people that ask me, is it expensive? How does it work? Do a lot of people do that? Is there a real market for it? So maybe you want to just expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I'll tell you, I'm a good person to ask, because I have learned a lot about audiobooks, and I have made mistakes, and I have, like anything, right? You always, you make mistakes as you learn, and that's how you learn. I learn best when I'm like, oh, I messed that up. Let me go fix it. Right. So they are expensive. So you can make audiobooks 2 ways. You can either just pay the narrator outright, or you can hire a narrator on royalty share. So meaning that they agree to basically do your book for no payment up front, and then they get a part of the profits until they make their money back. Now, all of my audiobooks I just pay the narrators up front. And that's a business choice that I made, because like I said, I saved up money from my previous job to literally be able to finance my author business. So I'm able to do that. I don't think a lot of authors are able to do that. So it really just depends on what financial position everyone is in, when they make those decisions. I love audiobooks, because when I was in sales and I drove a lot, I listened to a ton of audiobooks. So I always knew I was going to make my books in audiobooks. It's very important to me. And they are the fastest growing segment of book sales. Right. So I do think that this year in 2021 will be the year where I will actually surpass my audiobook sales, will actually make more profit than my ebook and paperbook sales combined. Wow. The way things are trending. Because they also have a higher price point. So audiobooks have a higher price point. So you have to pay more to get them made, but people are willing to pay more, and they have a higher price point. So you can potentially recoup your investment within a reasonable amount of time, and then from then on, it's just your profit, whatever you're selling. But with that being said, they're also terribly difficult to market. So I'm still figuring out how to market them. And I'm trying different things, and some things are working and some things don't. And then you try different things. Right. But regardless, I'm happy that I did it. All of my audiobooks are wide, even on the Isla Asher name. So my Isla Asher books are in Kindle Unlimited. My Rebecca Hefner books are all wide on all platforms. For ebook, my Isla Asher books are only on Kindle Unlimited. For audiobooks, they're on every platform. So I have them on Kobo, Apple. So that's great, because you can, a lot of people buy audiobooks on Google Play, right? iTunes, all these different things. Chirp is a big deal now because they're owned by BookBub. Anyway, so I'm happy that I did it. It is a long, grueling process, and you really need to make sure you find the right narrators. I love Devin Wilcox, who's the narrator of my Aetherius Earth series, but he had never narrated an audiobook before I hired him. And I didn't know what I was doing either. And he didn't have a following or an audience because we were both new.
Right.
So he cost less, but he didn't have a built-in audience. So for my next two narrators that I hired, I made sure that they had a built-in audience. And that also helps with sales because they already have fans who are going to buy whatever author's books they narrate. Well, so that was a big lesson.
What I found, what you just told me tells me a lot, and I think that'll help, viewers that are wondering about that. But what I found with audiobooks, like I said, I've never done one myself, is that there's two key things to it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this. One is you got to have a good narrator, someone with a voice and a delivery that's going to work. If you have a bad narrator, you're in trouble.
Very true.
Yeah, you're going to lose your audience real quick. The second thing is editing. A comma in the wrong place when they're talking, reading your book online, a comma in the wrong place can send something totally different than what you once said. So your editing has to be critical. I mean, we all make mistakes in editing, whether we self-edit or go to software programs or get an actual editor. And like you say, depending on your finances, a lot of people can't afford an actual editor. They're expensive.
Right.
So a lot of people go to the software editing or the self-editing, which I don't recommend. I mean, you can do it to a point, but you still need some type of backup, like a software program or an actual human editor.
Sure.
I use human editors in my first two books. I'm not on my third book. I'm going with software and whatever I do myself, because there's a financial issue here for me personally. So I chose to do that. If I had my choice, I would always go to a human editor. That would be my first recommendation for anybody. But sometimes you just can't do it, so you try to find a better way to do it. But I even found with professional editing, after the book was out, I'd find a mistake here and there. Not a lot. Simple mistakes, a comma missing here or a word that should be spelled one way that's spelled another way, but it sounds the same. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
So you do see mistakes. Critical.
Always. We're all human. It's in every book I read, I find at least one mistake. And in mine, I ended up going back and hiring a second proofreader after I released The End of Hatred because I found a couple of errors in it, and I was like, "This is unacceptable."
I feel the same way, and it blows my mind. How many times can you read something over and over and never see it? And yet, as soon as it goes into print, you find it. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
but that's why
author blindness.
Yeah, that's why I say self editing can work to a point, but it's not right. It's not the way to rely on.
It's not ideal.
No, you have to do something else. But
absolutely.
But anyway. When we talk about an audio book and what you do with it and everything, is there a procedure in place that, in other words, before you give the book to the narrator to look at and do you do any kind of other special editing, or you just rely on whatever book editing you already have?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So I realized when so my narrator for the Prevent the Past series, her name is Heather Firth, and she's fantastic. I love her narration. But I did realize, I didn't do this, but I am going to do it for my next series I make for audiobook, is that I could have gone in and edited all of those books a little bit more to tailor them to audio. So for example, I just listened to the whole thing through of A Timeline Restored, because like I said, I go through and listen before I approve it for, we all, like you said, you always, one more run through isn't going to hurt anybody. Yeah. And there were a couple of times where she narrated, and in the manuscript it said, whatever, I'm going to go to the kitchen, she said. But you don't need to say she said, because you can hear it. Heather's actually voicing the dialogue. Right. So it doesn't take away. It's fine. I still think it's, it sounds great.
Right.
But I think for my next series that whenever I hire my narrator, whoever I decide it's going to be, I think I am going to go through and take out some of the dialogue tags because you just don't need them because the narrators voice the different voices. So it's what she said because it's said in her in her tone, So I think maybe that's one thing I learned that I would do a little bit differently. But other than that, no, I just give them, the manuscript, the way the book is written. And, I hire some top-notch narrators. They're expensive, but they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
so they're really able to
That's why they're expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but they're able to figure it out. And, they take my manuscript and do amazing. So Devin narrates my Aetherius Earth series. He's fantastic. He has this deep voice. He's so good. Heather narrates my Prevent the Past series, and I gave her in book 2, there's a guy with an Australian accent. In book 3, the main female character has a Spanish accent. I gave her tons of challenges, and she met them all. Wow. And then my Isla Asher books are narrated actually by a dual narration team. They're a husband and wife team named Kai Kennicott and Wen Ross, and they're just so good. I mean, they're husband and wife, so they know how to play off each other. And so she voices the female voices and he does the male voices, and it's so fun. I love it. But they're, expensive, but they're good and they know what they're doing.
Okay. Well, I think that'll give our audience a general idea of what to expect if they go in that direction. What has been the most difficult part in marketing and selling your books? I know. I just want to groan at that question. I just think that, I have a background in sales, which is different than book marketing, but I always went into this knowing that there was going to be a marketing part of this. So if you want to be an author and you want to write a book that no one reads, then don't market it, and that's fine. But if you want to write a book that people are going to read, you have to market it. So when I hear indie authors say, I don't want to market, that's not what I enjoy doing, but I just wish people would find my book. I'm yeah, that's a fantasy world that you're living in. It's never going to happen. No. Yeah. So I think, I don't know. I think just accepting that, I had to learn what marketing things worked and what didn't. I've gotten a lot better at that over the years. I took all these courses on Amazon ads and BookBub ads and Facebook ads, and I do use all of them intermittently, but I figured out now what works best. So on Facebook, I mostly only boost my posts. I don't really do Facebook ads anymore. I do every once in a while if I'm having a sale, I'll do a real ad, to a target audience. But I just found that the cost per clicks were too high and it wasn't getting me the results I wanted. BookBub, same, their cost, unless you actually know what you're doing, which I've finally started to figure out, you're going to waste a lot of money there and get no results. And Amazon, I figured out, but it's the cost per click is high, right? So, and then you've got paid newsletters. So I'm a big fan of paid newsletters. Those are the ones that really get me the best return for my money. So Bargain Booksy, Free Booksy, Book Barbarian, there's David Gaughran. If you've heard of him, he does all these videos on stuff like that. He has a list of those paid newsletter features that work well. Right. Anyway, I think the hardest thing about marketing is just realizing that 90% of what you do is not going to work. Yeah. If you realize that, then you'll be happy with the 10% that does. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. When I do actually do a promotion that works and I get a lot of sales and I get a lot of buy through my series and people read the whole series. Right. Then I'm wow, this was a good one, as opposed to the 10 bad ones that I read. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So. I think what you just said, most authors that have been around a little while anyway, that have written more than one book, would have to agree with everything you just said. And if you can get a 10% payback on what you're doing, you got to consider yourself pretty good, pretty lucky. So yeah. I agree with that. So my next question was going to be, how do you promote your books? But you've kind of already answered that. Newsletters, you do some Facebook. And do you do Twitter? I don't know if you do anything on Twitter.
I do Twitter. I haven't been on Twitter as much lately because so I'm on Instagram quite often, and I signed up for TikTok about a month ago, and I thought I was going to hate it because I'm like not a spring chicken anymore, and I'm not great with technology, but I actually love it. And there's a whole book community on there. It's called Book Talk. So that's the hashtag Book Talk. Oh. And it's really supportive. You should honestly look into it. I was the biggest, like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do another social media thing, but it's been really great. And I've connected with some new readers. Wow. I do giveaways there. Like I really enjoy it. So I am on social media a lot. That is one of the main ways I actually market my books is that people just find me and they're like, oh, you seem fun. I'll buy your book.
Yeah. That's kind of like what I do too. I'm on social media a lot, and I do get a little bit of success with Facebook. Not a lot, but a little bit, and Twitter too.
Good.
But
Good.
you have to find. I've tried. You said book. What did you say? Booksies.
Bargain Booksy and Free Booksy.
Yeah, I've tried that, but I haven't had too much luck with that. Maybe I'm doing something wrong with that. I don't know. I'll have to go take a look at that again. And Vinny's books. You ever hear of Vinny's books?
I haven't heard of it, but yeah.
Yeah, he has quite a few. He has 2 or 3 different websites. And but nice. I don't seem to do well with that stuff. I might be doing something wrong, but I'll go back and take a look at it.
Yeah, and I think also the thing that I find what really makes those promotions successful is that what I do is I put book 1 on sale or book 2 on sale. So because I'm really trying to get them to buy, you really only profit on those if they buy the other books in the series at full price, right? So it might just be that you don't, your books aren't, maybe the question is like, what do they have to follow through to buy it full price to like make it worth your while?
Right.
And I definitely have found the more books I have out and the more series I have out, that definitely the more successful they are.
Right. But what's good about the way you write your series, which a lot of new authors don't do, is you don't leave anybody hanging. When you finish that first book, I was satisfied that the book ended.
Yes.
Whereas even though you go into the next story and you can move the characters on, that's different than not ending the story. And when you write a book trying to hook the readers into go into your next book, you get a lot of bad reactions from that. People don't like that. They want completion. They want to find, they want a final end to the story. You do that well, and then
Thank you.
And then you just bring the characters to the next book. That's what you should do if you're doing a series.
I agree. I do. Yeah, I don't like ending a book on a cliffhanger. I'll leave a book like knowing that the characters are going to and the story is going to continue. But I agree. I don't want like some huge cliffhanger that's like, what did you just do to me? Because the reader trusts the author, and they're trusting the author to like help them wrap up this book. So I agree.
I read a lot of reviews on Amazon just to give a flow of what people are thinking. And I always notice that one of the harshest negative remarks that come out on Amazon is authors that write a book and leave you hanging. I mean,
absolutely,
people get angry with
They
that.
sure do.
So if anybody's out there writing this series, make sure you complete the story, even if you bring the characters onto the next story.
Yes, and it can be done in every book. And, your readers will continue reading if they are invested.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I agree. So what advice do you offer people out there who have a desire to write a book but are afraid to try? That happens. I get that all the time from people. I don't want to look bad.
Really?
I might fail. Is there anything you could say to advise people who want to write a book but are afraid to try?
Oh, that makes me sad. Yes. I wish everybody would write whatever they want to write.
Exactly. Yeah.
My advice would be for those people to go. This might be terrible advice, but anyway, my advice would be for them to think of whoever their favorite author is, and go to Amazon or Goodreads and read all the 1-star reviews that people have written about their favorite author. And what they're going to realize is that nobody is ever happy with everything, right? So no matter who you are or how beloved you are as an author. There are always going to be people that are going to leave you 1-star reviews and hate your book. And there are going to be people that leave you 5-star reviews and love your book. And at the end of the day, write the story that you want to write and put it out there, and just know that you're going to get the same reaction that your favorite author got. You're going to get those 5-star reviews and you're going to get the 1-star reviews. And that's okay, because reviews are for readers. They have the ability to feel however they want to feel about your book. But your story is for you first. So write it for you first, write it to make yourself happy, and then put it out there, and just know that some people are going to hate it and some people are going to love it. And if you're okay with that, you'll be good to go.
I think that's excellent advice. Right? I never thought about that, reading the 1-star reviews for that reason. I do read them.
Oh, I do it all the time.
I never thought of it about it for that reason. It's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I love, like I said, J.R. Ward and Nora Roberts are two of my favorite. I read their 1-star Goodreads reviews all the time.
Yeah.
It just makes me like be able to take a deep breath and go, okay, well, these people hated their book too. So, And again, I knock on wood, I'm very lucky. I have really wonderful reviews on all my books, which is really nice. But there's always that one troll. Everybody's going to get them.
Yep.
So
you're not. The more books you write, the more likely it's going to happen.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that the book is bad. It just means that somebody didn't like your style or something. I mean, or maybe they were just grumpy. You don't know.
You can't make everybody happy, And I think that people have to realize that. It was a hard thing for me to realize, even coming from a background in sales where I was totally fine with rejection. I got rejected all the time. No big deal. Move on.
Yeah.
Law of averages, But again, it's different when it's your book baby,
Right. Yeah, it's your baby. That's right. All right, my last question is what advice do you offer to new writers? Do you think self-publishing is the way for them to go? I read somewhere that you're launching your own independent publishing company too. So if you'd like to talk about that, that would be great too.
Sure. Yeah. So last year I set up a LLC and basically made my self-publishing business into a real business. So I set up a LLC name. It's called Reading Goddess Press LLC, because I just thought that was like a cool name. And that's my imprint that I publish all my books under now. So all Rebecca Hefner and Isla Asher. And I just felt it was time to make it more of a business and to treat it like a business. Like when I published my first couple of books, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to be successful at it. And you can always be more successful. But anyway, by the time I had last year and I, had multiple books published, I realized it was time to turn it into more of a business. So for new writers, look, I can only speak for myself. I love self-publishing and I love owning my own indie publishing LLC. I love the freedom that brings. I have creative control over my stories. I choose my own editors. I choose my own proofreaders. I choose whatever I want to do. I choose my release dates. I choose everything. I choose my pricing. And I just love it. And there are a lot of authors who used to be traditionally published who you can find on YouTube who will sing the praises. They've switched over to being indie published and self-published and they love it. Right. So I really enjoy it. Now, the caveat to that is this. It is extremely difficult to run your author business. And I'm an extremely hard worker. I work at this all the time. I mean, my friends joke that I never take a break from this author business, and that's maybe not healthy, but during a pandemic, what else was I going to do? Right. So, it is extremely hard work. And if you're someone who just wants to write books and not have to deal with the other stuff, like the marketing and the learning different things and learning how to do ads and all that other stuff, then it might be the best choice for you to actually query and try and go through a traditional publisher. If all you want to do is write and that's it.
Right.
So that's my advice. If you enjoy owning your own business and having creative control and control of everything, then 100% self-publishing is for you. I love it.
I actually agree with everything you just said. I mean, people have the wrong idea about being an author when they first start, because they have no idea the difficulties. First, to find a traditional publishing company that's even interested in you, or a literary agent that's going to pick you up. It's nearly impossible today.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's impossible. There's people that still do it, and God bless them.
Right.
They get it done, but it's very, very difficult. So, if,
Absolutely.
like you say, if your goal is to write and get your books out there, and try to get, bring some attention to your books and to yourself, self-publishing is the way to go, because you have more
Yes.
control over everything. It's hard work. Like you said, you put a lot of hours in. It's hard work and everything, but you have control. And that's the important, that's the
Yes.
key thing. You have control. So if you fail, it's kind of your fault. And if you succeed, it's kind of your fault. So, that I agree with everything you just said on that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. And I think, you're self-published. I mean, it is just, I love the control. So
Right.
that's great. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, for allowing me to interview you. Hopefully we've at least generated some interest for self-publishing and new.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, it's every time that I do one of these podcasts and I speak to an author, I think it helps the people out there that are struggling a little bit. Even if they only get one thing out of this podcast today from you, it'll be a help. But I think they're going to get more than that.
Well, I hope so. And thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So I want to wish you luck with all your future writing projects. I don't think you need luck. I think you're very talented, and I wish you only the best.
Well, thank you so much, Dan, and thank you for having me on. I mean, this is so fun. I love this. It's nice chatting with you.
My pleasure. Maybe we'll do it again sometime, okay?
Sure.
Okay, you take it now.
All right, thanks so much.
Bye-bye. At the end of each podcast, I will show the book covers of some books published, and in many cases, self-published. One of these books could be the next great story you read. Some books that may attract your attention, available on Amazon.com. A Paradox of Fates, Rebecca Hefner. A Merman's Choice by Alice Renard. The Manifesto Murders by Nick Ayres. The Wings of a Flying Tiger by Iris Yang. Hot Mistake by Kara Lockwood. And Aurora's Cowboy by Ian MacDonald. Self-publishing is a tough and lonely road to travel. But when you finally reach your destination, hopefully it will prove a worthwhile trip. Until next time, I'm Dan Davidson, and remember, new discoveries never come without searching for them first.
Dan Davidson and Rich Marcano's books, Butterfly Wish and Twice Upon a Time, are available on Amazon Kindle, BookBaby, Barnes & Nobles, Nook, Goodreads, and several other internet book sites. Their next release will be the historical romance, Tasting Raindrops. Please tune in to other great podcasts as well, such as The Truth About Beer and